This episode fueled by Mudwater. Follow the link in the description to get a crazy deal on your first order of mud. My name is Michael. I've been absolutely fascinated by tabletop role-playing games for the better part of my life, and what, you want to split the party? Okay. Welcome to Roll With Me. Man, I have been busy and it has been hot. Sorry I've been gone for like 3.5 weeks, but I was having some technical difficulties. I had computers breaking down and cameras malfunctioning and everything overheating. I've been off playing like music festivals and stuff. It's been pretty crazy. If you want to keep up on all of the things that I'm doing in life outside of this show, you can head to my Patreon, patreon.com/Michael Wingate, and check out all of the show footage that I'm doing from all of my shows, because I am also a musician. It's like what I do first. Sorry I kept that from you for so long, but it's like only like 96 outside today, so it's a little less oppressively hot, and I'm gonna see if I can't make a video about my favorite tactic in Monster of the Week. Now, before we go ahead and get into this, I just want to say, as a disclaimer, you may have heard me say it before, Monster of the Week is not Dungeons & Dragons, and Dungeons & Dragons is not Monster of the Week. They're two different games, they have two different rule sets, two different ways to play them, lots of different things. They're not the same thing. So take all of your Dungeons & Dragons knowledge and throw it out the window for this episode, because we're going to talk about a lot of things that would not work in D&D, but are awesome in Monster of the Week. When I think about Monster of the Week, I think of television shows like Supernatural and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and The Dresden Files and The X-Files and all of those great Monster of the Week shows, right? Where every week they come across a new monster, a new creature, an alien, or something to deal with, right? And they go through solving the mystery and figuring out what it is, and they hunt it down, and either they kill it, or they set it free, or they do some rituals, or something. You know, maybe they make friends with it. I don't know. They all get too complicated after season 3. But Monster of the Week is not a dungeon crawl. It is not an adventure to save the princess. It is not preparing for great battle with an enormous dragon to save the town. It is not meeting in a tavern to be set on mystical quests by some shadowy figure or whatnot. Monster of the Week is heavily based in realism and heavily based in conversation and a sort of cinematic approach to gameplay. So to have a really great session of Monster of the Week, or to have a really great campaign of Monster of the Week, we really need to be thinking of each session as an episode of a TV show, and we need to think about the form of how those really work. So at the first scene of the TV show, right, we see, maybe we don't see the monster itself, but maybe we see the first victim of the monster, right, from the monster's perspective. We see what happens to them, or we see, we hear of something brutal happening, something supernatural happening, something strange happening outside of town, or something that calls alarm to people other than the hunters. And the hunters are then given this information some way or another. Maybe they read it in the newspaper, they see it on the morning news, they hear it on the street as they're going to get their cup of coffee in the morning. It could be anything. They figure out that something weird is going on, something's amiss, and they need to get together and start figuring out what's going down so they can properly protect their town from what goes bump in the night. Now, the Keeper needs to facilitate this with rich storytelling, planting seeds of little pieces of information throughout the town. Maybe they are going to get their cup of coffee in the morning, and they're going to good old Morning Joe, and they sit down and say, hey, Joe, and you, as the Keeper, now need to be Joe and be like, hey, did you hear what happened last night? Or did you hear little Bobby Sue went missing? Or did you hear there was a bear attack, you know, at the Wilderness Lodge up in the woods on the north side of town? You just got to facilitate the information somehow without giving too much away. But you can also certainly lay seeds of the circumstances, right? Let's say it's a Wendigo that is now coming to town to eat everything and turn everybody else into Wendigos, and so everyone can just shamble across the earth, eating people forever. But let's say you have planned for this Wendigo, yeah? And so he walks into Morning Joe, and he's getting his cup of coffee. And as you describe the scene inside Morning Joe, there's a couple of customers, and somebody's at the front counter ordering a coffee, and there's one guy just sitting at a table with a pile of empty plates just mounded on some scrambled eggs and steak and bacon, and just piles of dirty empty plates next to him, as if he's been eating a lot. And as our hunters explore and investigate this mystery, we drop more seeds like this throughout the episode, throughout the session. We drop more and more seeds. And in the first session of searching for a monster, you're probably not going to encounter the monster. In fact, I find it a lot better if you don't encounter the monster until the very end. If every time you show up when you think the monster is going to be there, it just evades you. It adds a sense of suspense and mystery, and it really ingrains this idea into the heads of the hunters that, oh, maybe it's not a Wendigo, maybe we're wrong, maybe it's something different. There's no way for us to know completely until we find the creature. And so now it's time for the hunters to really do some digging, to go and pull some threads and figure out what this creature might be. And the thing about impending threats on a town is that you don't really have a ton of time to do all of this investigation if you want to save as many lives as possible. The issue is pressing. And if you have a party of 4 or 5 hunters, well, then it might be a good idea to split up.
Let's split up and search for this ape man who eats hamburgers.
Now, we all know that in Dungeons & Dragons, rule number 1 is never split the party. This is because it puts everyone in grave danger, and it significantly weakens the party. In Monster of the Week, my number 1 rule is always split the party. This is because it puts everyone in grave danger and significantly weakens the party. As a dungeon master, I absolutely cannot stand splitting the party, because I do not have the time to keep track of all of the monsters and creatures that I have stocked in all of the different rooms of the dungeon, and I do not want my party splitting off to go and face all of these things alone. Also, I've set up all of the encounters in the dungeon to have specific challenge ratings for the specific size and level of the party that I'm working with, which means if one of them goes into a room alone that's built for, say, the entire party, they're probably not going to survive, and they're not going to be very happy with me. And if they're split, there's probably nothing that the party can do to come and help them if they're all off fighting some goblins in one room and this guy's fighting a shambling mound on his own. It's just a mess. Don't do it. In Dungeons & Dragons, don't split the party. Monster of the Week, split it all the time. Split them up. Make them go alone everywhere. The mundane takes experience when they go out alone. If they have the move, don't worry, I'll go check it out. There's so many fun things you can play with by splitting up the party. Let's get into it. Splitting the party in Monster of the Week allows your hunters to cover a lot of ground fairly quickly. So you can send your expert to the library to do some research. You can send your divine to the clergy to discuss with the priest perhaps some biblical implications of the things that are going on. You can have the wronged go and search in the woods and look for clues and tracks, while the mundane walks around town interviewing people, asking people things, and this way you can facilitate multiple scenes, each with one of your hunters, and give them a chance to really shine in their area. This gives our players, right, a little more feeling of being needed, of being a valued member of the team, because everybody is going off to do something on their own. This also paves the way for us to use some really wild storytelling. We can pepper in little clues and details and puzzle pieces throughout the mystery as they all go off on their own to figure out certain things. Now, Michael Sands has a countdown clock that he uses. We'll go into that in detail in another video when I talk about how to really run a mystery in full. But right now, what we need to know is that what Michael Sands, the writer of Monster of the Week, has done is laid out sort of a countdown clock of how the mystery should proceed. Starting with, introduction of the mystery, obviously ending with the, encounter with the monster. And when I run a session of Monster of the Week, I find that the game is most interesting and the most cinematic when all of the party that has been split up, following their clues, gets each puzzle piece that they need to put together to find the monster that they're looking for and figure out what's going down, right as the countdown clock strikes midnight and the monster is coming to town. This gives the party a little bit of time to prepare, but it also gives them this sense of urgency to get together to the spot where they're going to encounter this monster. And when they do, it is like the Avengers assembling. It is the superhero team of all-star monster hunters that have been apart for the last couple of days, now coming together in full force to tackle the problem together. And if you want to take it another step further, if you're using a monster that maybe has minions or supernatural powers that they can affect things far away from them, as your party tries to convene to the spot, have them hit roadblocks presented by the monster. Whether it is, a police roadblock, a literal roadblock, right, where maybe somebody has been attacked in the woods, right, while the monster's on its way to where it's going, and now you're stuck and you got to get out of the car and you walk or something, or take another route and it might take you longer. Or you're hunting like a witch or something. You're trying to find the lair of like a hag, right? And the hag has minions, like enchanted beasts, or like a sea of rabid squirrels that comes and attacks you in the woods as you're looking for clues. Have the hunters encounter little things and little interruptions on their way to convene. This gives us it feeds that sense of urgency. And it gives us this sense of real danger because the party has been split. And so they are much weaker because they're not together. And they're trying to convene and they're being harrowed by all of these different problems. And so that gives the payoff so much more energy when we hit together at that last spot to take down the monster or creature or big bad evil guy, right, that we're getting after, right? When we all finally come together after all of the hardship we have endured, it is magical. Every time, it's magical. And I know it's formulaic, but like, you watch the TV shows, right? Now again, I absolutely do not advocate splitting the party in Dungeons & Dragons. In Monster of the Week, however, it is my favorite thing to do, and if you haven't done so as a keeper yet, you should absolutely do that. Absolutely. Just do it. Just split the party and make them go off on their own and put them in grave danger and make them weaker and make the story more interesting, because there's nothing more boring to me than taking the D&D formula and putting it into Monster of the Week. It's lame. You got a group of travelers walking through a town and just handling everything themselves, and it's cool, but it's more difficult to make interesting than a story about a group of people who go off and are great at their own thing in their own right and encounter their own dangers and then eventually come together. It's why we watch the Avengers. It's why we watched the Avengers movies first, right? And then the Avengers, the big one with all of the, you know what I'm talking about. We watched Captain America, we watched Iron Man, we saw all the, with Thor, and we saw all their origin stories, we saw them off doing their own adventures, right? And then they come back for the Avengers and the Ultron and all those movies and stuff, and it's cool. It's a great formula, so like use it. I didn't make it up, I promise. Well, I hope y'all found this helpful in some way. It's really hot. I think it's like 100 degrees up here right now. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and head over to the channel for there's a lot of stuff. Head over to the channel. It's so hot I can't talk. There's a lot of cool content going up there right now. I have my Patreon going, patreon.com/Michael Wingate, where you can see all of my music stuff. I'm uploading full show videos from my piano cam as I play with various bands and various places all over America. So follow me on my journey and watch more, roll with me, and check out Lights Up Dice Out, because it's a super fun Dungeons and Dragons real play podcast that I've been working on with some really cool friends. New episodes every other Monday. I think that's it. Thanks to the sponsors. Drink mud water. It's great stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the beach.